As far as couple dynamics go, do these couples make you think about which dynamic you have?
Is there a theme to Korean storytelling? And does it make waves stateside?
Red and Red Real Reviews explores the feud of two couples with Beef, Season 2 on Netflix. I knew within the first 5 minutes I was going to hate it, but then it was so bad. Ugh.
Nobody wants this? Like
Literally nobody wants this.
Internet's gonna get mad at me for this one. There's no fat L. You know?
Duty, which I can't say without laughing. Duty, like I'm English.
John B and Sarah are, I don't want to sound like a loser for saying this, but they're adorable. I'll admit it.
Welcome back to another episode of Red and Red Real Reviews. So today we're covering Season 2 of Beef on Netflix. Before we squash that beef, though, let us know what you think of the podcast as a whole or a possible show we should have on our radar by emailing us at redandredrealreviews@gmail.com and following us on Instagram, Red and Red Real Reviews. That's the letter N, real spelled with two E's. So I feel like White Lotus can't be the only anthology series we've covered, but that's the thing where each season has a different story. I can't really think of any others besides White Lotus at the moment. So that's what we have here. We have a new cast of characters. We have a new plot coming in. So the good thing that happens with a show like this is you don't really have to see the season before it just to grasp what's going on, just because it doesn't lead in from one season to the next. But we have both seen Season 1 of Beef, so we do have something to compare it to in this regard. So I had recently seen Oscar Isaac and Carey Mulligan being interviewed about the show, and they said that the Beef this season was going to highlight a couple beefing with another couple. And so they mentioned, of course, that they are a couple and they are beefing with this younger in love couple. And since I saw how serious and ugly the beef got in the first season, I was thinking kind of that nothing was off limits for this season. Like this could potentially turn into an all-out war between these couples where they're going to stop at nothing to make each other's lives miserable, absolutely miserable. So that's kind of where the bar was set for me. I was like, this is probably going to get really bad, just like the first season was. So what were you anticipating going into this season?
Um, will say, to take a slight step backwards, the only other series I could think that would be comparable to this type of storytelling would be True Detective,
Mm,
which of course predated our show, with the exception
right.
of that abomination with Jodie Foster that, we will not speak of. So I don't even know if I finished that. So that's the only other thing besides the White Lotus that I could compare
Yeah.
to this kind of storytelling. Um, I didn't look up really much of this going in just because I was operating on the assumption that it was going to be very similar to season one,
Mm,
except with this, and it's pretty obvious just from the key art that it's going to be this couple on couple crime.
mm.
So, and it did kind of start out that way, but I feel like that drifted a bit. And like I'll save my thoughts on that till the end. But to the point where like I wasn't even necessarily sure who was really having the beef anymore.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, like I that was my premise going into it was a pretty generic thought process, and just based on kind of what I expected from season one and how this was marketed, I was kind of had what their intention was as a assumption going in.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even watch the trailer. I think the only thing I saw of it was that interview that they did, and they played a clip from it. But I mean, it didn't really reveal a lot. But they just basically gave the premise of what was happening, and yeah, so I didn't really look into it a lot either. But yeah, I wasn't really sure what to expect. Like when you're thrown into the show, it's 8 episodes and we got all 8. So you're not really sure where it's going to go. Of course, they introduce the beef in the first episode, but it kind of takes some weird turns
Hmm.
at several times. I think I noted down like a bunch of cliffhangers and just like crazy shit that happened. Like at the end of every few episodes, it was like, the second or third episode, something crazy happened at the end. And then like the sixth episode. So it was kind of, there were two or three sort of, I don't want to say plot twists, but kind of things that were introduced or things that happened that were uh, very quick pace where you're just like, well, that came out of nowhere. What?
Yeah, and I kind of left a lot of my intrigue and trust in the show based on the fact that Oscar Isaac and Carey Mulligan were the headliners.
Yeah.
And to me, like the two of them carry enough gravitas into a show to kind of trust where the show's
Mm,
going without having to, really re-research it too much.
yeah. Okay. So let's just get into it. What was your one thing to watch for?
So there's two main couples in this. We have Josh
Mm,
and Lindsay, who are Oscar Isaac and Carey Mulligan's characters.
mhm,
And then this younger couple, Ashley and Austin, who to me, they're not as well known in names, not remotely as well known in names. And they're kind of pitted against each other. But then there's also Dr. Kim and Chairwoman Park,
mm,
who fit into my point here a little bit more than what can be expected. And I think that there's a subtle theme or talking point in this about what type of couple is the strongest.
mm,
So we have Josh and Lindsay, who presumably met or at least forged most of their relationship through working together at the country club. They have this, as we eventually learn to realize, this kind of best friend dynamic. And so that's obviously how they kind of grew together. Then there's this. And it's never, I don't think they did, but it's also never really disclosed that they went to high school together, but they have this high school sweetheart dynamic between Ashley and Austin. Young love puppies dynamic because they got together so young, they're already planning their life out, and they're seeing most of each other's drama, most of each other's ugly side, and trivial personality defects as their relationship progresses. And then, although they were not a featured couple, Dr. Kim and Chairwoman Park have a completely different dynamic at play, where they're a couple. We've seen this uh, both, characterized in real life as well as in past shows, where the couple's together for power, wealth, and influence.
mm.
There's a significant age gap between them. It was like the second marriage for at least Park, if not Dr. Kim as well. So the undertone to them is that they're together because they each bring a lot of influence to society based on how the power that each of them has accumulated.
Mm.
So I think that's set up in a way that the audience, if you kind of like to look deep to like kind of analyze them deeper, that is kind of showing the audience these different ways that couples can come together and form. And there's so much of the show that we just cannot talk about because it's a very spoilers. It would be very
Yeah.
spoiler centric content.
Mm.
Um, I will point to this because where these couples wind up at the end of the show was a bit of a surprise to me. I was
Mm.
not expecting the ones to end in a positive effect that did, and the ones that ended in a more negative or neutral effect to also end the way they did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But the fact that you mentioned the couples, I did think that was interesting the way it was laid out. It kind of made me think about my own past relationships and like what appearances are. And I sort of feel like things are not always what they seem. You have this prominent rich couple that owns not owns but runs a country club. You have this couple who they don't say they went to high school together. I think that they met at the country club,
Yeah.
Ashley and Austin, because they at one point, I think Austin says we've been together for 2 years. I
Yeah.
think he says he's 29. I don't know if they say how old Ashley is at any point, but yeah, and that's Charles Melton, by the way. He was one of the ones that I was kind of excited about. Um, I don't know Ashley's name, the actress's name, but I know her face. She looked very familiar to me, and I didn't know if she just looked like somebody else. But I looked up her filmography. She has been in Mayor of Easttown with Kate Winslet, so maybe that's where I know her from. Otherwise, I didn't really know anything. I didn't know her body of work, but yeah, it really got me thinking to the fact that sometimes things are not what they seem. And I know that I've been in relationships that have been more like that I've posted more on social media, that I've been more like there's been more PDA in public, but like that were actually pretty toxic, terrible relationships. So it's just interesting that you have these two very different couples and the way that they function. You have Josh and Lindsay who have been together for a while, and they do say that, in this stage of their life, yes, they're maintaining and they're very into the world of country club and rich people. And there's a lot of celebrity cameos in this show because it does take place in LA, I'm assuming, California, somewhere. So
Yeah.
there are quite a
Montecito.
few. Yeah, there's quite a few celebrity cameos, which is kind of funny because you just see like all these random celebrities popping up, and I won't ruin that for anybody either. But I did write them down. I'm like, why is this person here? It was very random. So yeah, they mentioned that earlier in their lives, like I think when they first met, they were really into like music and music festivals. And I just thought that was funny because at one point they involve this famous electronic band called Hot Chip, which I know of. So I was like, oh, cool. Like, like Josh is supposed to have this prior life being a musician or something. And they were all into Coachella. Like Lindsay mentions Coachella and this experience they had at Coachella. And so it's funny that you can relate to some of that, but they do have a very complicated history. And because they're married, they have a certain history. They're not like the very lovey-dovey behavior that Ashley and Austin have, where it's like, oh, they get off the phone. Oh, I love you. Oh, I miss you so much. Oh, like just that kind of, to be honest, gross. Like you
Gross.
just, I don't know. I just kind of see, I mean, I've been married for over 3 years. Like, there's not like I should be cynical at this point, but like, I've known my husband for, I think, 8 years, going on 9 years later this year. So I kind of see couples like that. I'm like, man, you don't know how, I
The
don't know. Like
grind.
it's,
The grind is.
yeah, like you don't really know, like, and there is some conversation at one point about seeing someone at their worst and being with someone at their worst and still wanting to be with them after seeing that. And I think that there was some truth to that, where it's like, that's not necessarily what marriage is, but it sort of is. Like, with this surface level stuff of like, oh, like I haven't seen you in a day, I miss you so much. Oh no, you get off the phone first. Like I just, that whole stuff, like I just kind of roll my eyes, like you guys don't even know what being a couple is. You don't know what love is if that's like what you're focusing in on. So yeah, I do think Ashley and Austin have a certain arc that they're forced to look into things. They're forced to look into their relationship a little bit deeper than like, it's not just like making out in a corner at the country club. It's not just, oh, I haven't seen you in hours and I'm gonna miss you when you're gone. Like it's just so much more than that. And yeah, so it kind of forced me to take an interesting look at things and like past relationships and how I acted in past relationships and how that lines up with these three couples in the show.
Yeah, and yeah, like they didn't go to high school together, but they still have that high school sweetheart, teenage puppy love type of energy about them.
Puppy love, that's a good
Yeah,
word for it. Like just that, yeah, that very like in your face, like public affection, that like hand holding, making out whenever you get a chance, like that whole thing. There's definitely, yeah, puppy love.
like towards the end, I'll call you when I get to the airport. I'll call you when I'm on the plane. I'll call you when I land. I'm like, how about just safe travels and let me know that you got there safely.
Exactly. You like that would be reasonable to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was just like overkill. Like it was like, okay, are you really this like obsessive or do you just think that's like what you're supposed to do as a
right,
person in an established relationship?
right.
Yeah. Okay, so getting into my one thing, it's a little bit different than there's like a whole
Ghost.
different thing than the couples. So my thing was kind of weird. I don't know. So my one thing to watch for is the Korean storytelling. And I can't say I've consumed a lot of Korean films and shows over the years, but I have consumed a bit. And I do feel like it's almost hard for me to articulate, but I do feel like it does have a certain style to it versus, American cinema and American TV. And so the things that I've seen, like I would say recently, but I mean, Parasite is from 2019, so that's already 6, 7 years old. I can't
Mm.
believe I said 6, 7. I don't mean to do that. Oops. Uh, so yeah, I've seen Parasite, I've seen Squid Game, which are Korean cinema and shows. So I instantly recognized the actor who plays Dr. Kim. His name is Song Kang Ho. And I was like, I know this guy was definitely in Parasite or Squid Game. I just didn't know which one. And yes, he's from Parasite. So that's why I recognized him. But I don't think I went into this expecting season two to have a Korean tie-in, just like season
Right.
one did, but it seems kind of like maybe all of the seasons of this show will have some sort of Korean tie-in just because of the creator. So the creator's name is Lee Sung Jin, and he's definitely responsible for this Korean storytelling in both seasons. Now, what I can pull out of what I think the Korean style of storytelling is like, it seems to be like it can be quite dark, but at the same time, it can be
Uh,
very witty or like relatable. And also, there's just uh, a core of truth in it. And like, that's what's weird is like they can be really dark in 1 minute and then the next 30 seconds they're like laughing about something. Like it's sort of like a twisted,
whimsical.
yeah, it's like a weird fantasy, like fantastical kind of humor, which is just like very strange. And then they'll kind of shock the hell out of you when you least expect it. They catch you unaware and they either like reach in and rip out your heart or they just like shock you to death because I had a few moments in this show. I mentioned those like kind of cliffhangers where my mouth was like wide open, where I was just like, it took me a second to digest what just happened. I was like, wait, what? That just
Mm.
came out of nowhere. So yeah, I mean, I definitely, and also in the way that the episodes ended and like you had like the big font with like the I
The
think
credits.
the first thing you would see is the creator's name, I'm pretty sure. Like
Yeah.
just roll like as soon as something crazy happens that just bowls you over, you see those credits really large on the screen. You have like that music coming in really aggressively. And like I did think there was a certain style to it. And I it kind of kept me intrigued. Like I enjoyed the way that it surprised me.
I also recognize Dr. Kim, but I couldn't place him.
Hmm.
I do love Parasite, especially considering the
Yeah,
fact that I was really not accounting for much going into it when I saw it, and I
right.
was being saying I was pleasantly surprised is a severe understatement.
Oh yeah.
Squid Game, however, never really appealed to me, and I didn't want to watch just because everyone else was watching it. Kind of anti-hipster with my media consumption a little bit. Um, but I maybe I like had a different interpretation to a couple of these because the shocking moments. There's one cliffhanger in particular towards the end that had a feeling of shock, but it also just felt like a normal sense of drama and intrigue
Mm,
to end an episode with. It didn't necessarily feel like any uh, characteristic of any particular background or heritage. Um, and then there was a one moment at the end, which was a little bit of a wow factor. But it was so quick that it didn't really take up a lot of real estate in my mind to sit with because the climax just kind of continued on from there.
right.
There was another scene which I absolutely loved, and one of the scenes that probably really I don't want to say saved the show for sake of spoiling anything at the end. But one thing that I really enjoyed at towards the end, and it kind of reminded me of the church scene from Kingsman, something that's shot in this kind of like super cinematic way with
Oh
cameras in motion and probably shot all in one continuous take. It kind of
yeah, I know
reminded
what
me
you're
of
talking about.
that. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. And like I said, now maybe this is be pleading ignorance. I don't know if that Kingsman scene was rooted in Korean cinematography, so
Mm.
that I can't answer that. But on the off chance that it was, to me, that reminded me more of something like that than something characteristic to other Korean works in the past.
Yeah, I think what I had in my head was Squid Game, and I obviously it's very different as far as like plot goes, but I do feel like there is some sort of twisted sense of humor thing where they'll do gory or gross things, but there's like a funny like irony to it. And that's what I kind of recognize in Squid Game that I very much recognized in this show. So I was like, is there just, similar to when you go on vacation to a foreign country, like I have in mind when I went to like Scotland, they have a sense of humor where like you don't know if they're like completely pulling your leg, they're completely joking with you, or if they're serious. And that's what I'm kind of wondering. Is it like a very, I don't want to say stereotypical, but is it like a Korean style or is it a stereotype for them to have this like very twisted humor where, I mean, I haven't seen like any of their, I know that there's a lot of content on Netflix that originated in Korea and like they'll adapt it. Like they'll take like a horror movie from Korea and like I don't know if The Ring. I want to say that there has been like horror movies that have been adapted from Korean movies. And of course, I'm not
Uh,
a horror buff, so I don't know. There was this
Maybe onto something with that one though, with the ring.
there is a lot of times they're very violent. There's a lot of violence. And like we didn't see like tons of violence in this show, but there were, and I don't want to spoil it because it is sort of shocking, but there is some, and I don't want to say gore, like it's just there's some gross stuff. We'll just leave it at that. There's some gross uh retaliation kind of
Yeah.
tactics used, and like I did just in my head I was like, is that like a twisted Korean thing? Like who would think of that sort of like payback, or if you're trying to like you know get at someone or you're trying to make them pay for what they did, like why would that be the first place your mind goes? You know what I'm saying?
Well, there was to that point, there was one scene in particular where Josh is kind of in a bit of a precarious situation,
Mm.
and his way to get out of it was so dopey that I kind of thought like this is more comical than action intrigue.
Yeah, and there's that weird like there's something so peculiar and twisted, but you find yourself like kind of smirking or being like, "Zero, what?" Like
Well, it's to me it's akin to self-deprecating humor. That
that's yeah.
to me that's kind of where that theme falls and lives because a lot of times, yeah, there's people that can think up very slapstick and silly, quirky humor in their head. But a lot of times, you know, that takes a certain level of creativity in your brain to form a joke like that on the drop of a hat. And a lot of times, comics form their jokes and their content from their own life experiences. So it tends to have this natural self-deprecating tone to it.
I think that's kind of what it is. It's like even in Parasite, it's like calling out the the simple truth in something, but sort of poking fun at it. Like there is some sense of self-deprecation in it to me, I think.
hmm
That's a
I
great way
always
to
get
describe it.
I always get a kick out of that type of humor. So.
Yeah, and there were a few times I kind of laughed out loud. Because you have a lot of the characters are Korean. Um, I won't say who, but somebody calls, you know what, like Korean skincare is a thing. It's very much a thing. It's like a billions of dollar industry where we're Americans like a lot of the products that Koreans have for skincare because their skin looks amazing. So there's at one point where somebody calls one of the Korean characters a glass faced whore. And I was dying because like they call it like a glass face skin routine. Like you're supposed to, it's supposed to make your skin look like glass, they say. So I was dying with that insult. And it's only an insult that could, like thinking of all the things that Koreans are known for, like skincare. So I thought that was really funny and witty. And I think that the creator is also the writer. So he injects the storytelling with that humor and that weird, it's almost like a dark humor. It's like an irony, that self-deprecation. He injects a lot of that into the writing.
Yeah. There was at least one, if not two, moments with the red light therapy mask too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's some wellness kind of jokes in there as well. All right. So with all that being said, where do we land on this? Do we think that season 2 of Beef is worth watching?
I'd still say watch it, but I'm gonna make a little. It's not a caveat, but it's a little bit of not improvised, structured preface to this because if anyone's going into this thinking it's gonna be comparable to season one,
Mm,
I will tell them it is not. Like
yeah,
to me, and after watching it, like change your mentality if you think this is going to be similar to season one, because
right.
most of that season was Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong. They were at each other's throats, and
Mm-hmm.
that sold up the theme and the premise of Beef.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that here.
Mm-hmm.
It I'm not really sure in the whole of the season who really had the beat because it starts out with the two main couples and then it
Right.
drifts to the point where that's still kind of lying under the surface the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
but there's different times where they're coexisting with each other. They even come off as friends or allies. So eh, I didn't really get the same energy I got from season one. Most of the beef in this I felt was between each couple. There
Yeah.
was beef between Josh and Lindsay. There was beef between Ashley and Austin. There's beef between Park and Dr. Kim.
Mhm.
So and the overlap of those couples with each other felt more coincidental than intended.
I would agree with that. I don't think it's I think it's worth watching, but if you're gonna compare it to season one, like you can't compare it. This
No,
is this is
apples
apples
and
and
oranges.
oranges, right?
Jinx, you owe
So
me a Diet Coke.
I don't really drink Diet Coke.
I don't either.
I don't think you should either.
I don't either. I don't.
But no, I think the reason I would say it's worth watching is it's different from the first season, of course, but I think it's in some ways more relatable and more tolerable than the first season. It's just the first season was so incredibly cutthroat, and Ali Wong's character drove me up a freaking wall, and I could barely tolerate her. Like, I hated her. And I think that there's not really anybody who's that caliber of unlikable or intolerable for this season. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ashley was pretty annoying at times, but I think that it wasn't really enough to make you have a hard time tolerating the show. Like, you still sort of feel for her a little bit, even though you're like, oh my God, why are you like this? Like, just shut up. But no, I mean, I did like Charles Melton as Austin. I thought he was a relatable character, kind of similar to how Stephen Yeun was a redeemable, relatable character in the first season. And yeah, so you can't compare them, but I do think that they kind of took it down a little notch as far as like the
Yeah,
cutthroatness. Yeah.
I'd say that.
I think that made it easier to stomach and easier to digest in the fact that it wasn't so like extreme,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of wanted more of that. So it was kind of, in that sense, it was to me, I was a little disappointed because I was expecting the same type of energy, and it felt like even though it's a different season with different characters, the theme of the show should still kind of be consistent, and it didn't
Mm,
feel consistent at all. So that was just kind of where I went with it, and I think that ultimately built up to my overall emotion being it's a good show. The ending itself makes it worth it, but it took
mm.
me probably about 5.5 episodes to really start caring.
Oh, okay. I think I was caring in the first three or so, but I also think at times I was just wondering, where is this going? You know, like this I
Hmm.
was just like, okay, where are we at with this? Like, how is this gonna I was kind of wondering what the arc was going to be and what the journey was going to be because
Yeah,
I wasn't sure at some points. I was like, okay, well, are they beefing or are they not? And like, you
yeah,
know, whose motives are what? Like, I can't really tell what people's intentions are. So I don't really know where this is leading, but like, I didn't think it dragged or anything. I mean, I didn't think the pacing was bad where I was like, okay, let's have something happen, people. You know, I wasn't
right.
um I didn't feel like it was slow. I didn't feel like it was dragging. It kind of moved right along. So yeah, I mean, I generally would say it's worth watching, but just don't compare it to the first season. Like they're different entities.
Yeah, no, season one was very snappy, and this one was a little bit more of a slow burn.
Yeah, but I do think season one was more dark, and this one wasn't as dark. But yeah, so I guess what we can gather from these two seasons being very different is that like it's gonna be a different level of beef each time. You know what I mean?
Chuck versus Prime.
Yeah, like it's gonna be a different level of uh feud each time, I
Yeah.
guess, rather. Well, we hope there's no feuds here. So if you enjoyed listening to our show, we would appreciate it if you gave us a 5-star review. Let us know what you think of each episode. Also, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button so you know when new episodes release. Next up, we're sticking with Netflix again, but we have a hugely different vibe than Beef. So this is season 2 of Running Point. And the first season of this was enjoyable, light, fun, sort of I mean, I guess it's not the same because it's not like a rom-com, but I would equate it to what's the Kristen Bell
Nobody wants
Adam
this.
Nobody Wants This. I would kind of equate it to that. It's not a rom-com, but it had the same vibes as far as uh humor. And of course this is about basketball, so totally different,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'm kind of excited after, getting into this couples feud. I'm kind of excited to go into Running Point, where it's pretty lighthearted, pretty funny. I don't really care for basketball, but that doesn't really matter with this show. I still enjoy it. So
I That's something that was an instant attraction to me on the flip side, and it's something I intended to watch last year and just kind of got deprioritized because we weren't covering it.
mm,
But there's famous faces in it, and I can maybe have a couple hot takes from where it left off. So we'll
mm.
see how season 2 goes.
Yeah, and we'll see. I thought it was a very easy watch, so we'll see if season 2 is the same. We'll see if it keeps up the intrigue. Until the next real review, Red and Red signing out.